This week's edition of Extra Points is brought to you by John Hoffer, Jeep Chrysler.
Hey, high school sports fans. Welcome to our debut edition of Extra Points. This will be a weekly wrap-up session that we do each Friday night, just kind of talking about the night that was on the high school football scene. I am Tim Bisel, the executive sports editor here at the Topeka Capital Journal and CJ Online, alongside Rick Peterson, our longtime city prep reporter. Well, we started off with 4 city games and an area game of the week, and your city game of the week was a pretty good one. And Topeka High is one of those teams that had a successful season last year, and Hayden did too, for that matter. The city game of the week this week saw Topeka High beat Hayden 30-13. Topeka High looked pretty strong.
Yeah, actually it was, but it wasn't a 30-13 game. It was one of those games that the score doesn't indicate how close a game it was. Hayden was up 7-6 at halftime. They go up 14-7, and then Hayden scores, has a chance to tie the game, kicks the extra point, but it was wiped out by a penalty, then gets the extra point blocked, and it kind of deteriorated from there. I think High's going to ride Corey Thomas, who was an all-city quarterback last year. They got some other great players that are maybe you haven't heard of before that are coming up, and then Hayden's going to be fine. Hayden's going to be okay. They lost their quarterback tonight when they were right down at the goal line to build on a lead, and he wasn't able to come back. But they're going to be okay. They had over 100 yards in penalties tonight. They had a safety. They had a blocked extra point. But those two teams were 18-4, combined 18-4 last year, and I think they're going to be good again.
You mentioned Corey Thomas. He started strong, had a great game today. 19 rushes for 178 yards, and then added 58 passing yards. That's a pretty strong opening act for him.
Right, and he really got strong in the second half after they were down at halftime. And they also got, they call him Kai Thomas. He's a freshman, and he showed that he's going to be right away. It's very unusual for High, under this good streak they've had under Wall Alexander, to start a freshman. He's starting on both sides of the ball. He had 5 carries for 103 yards tonight, including a 29-yard TD.
And you mentioned Hayden. Hayden started the game with Andrew Smith returning an opening kickoff for a TD.
Right.
And I noticed in your story, you said that Hayden is going to be fine this year, and I noticed in your story that Bill Arnold said that we're not ready to throw in the towel just yet.
No, and you take away the mistakes, and you're not going to take all of them away, but they had a ton of them tonight. You clear up half of those, and you're going to be in ball games. And I think that'll be the key next week when they play at Emporia, just to kind of clean things up. They got to see what's going on with their quarterback situation, and if Samson Houston is out, they got to get Dylan Smith ready to go and get more reps and things like that. But I look for them to bounce back strong next week.
Real briefly, in other city action this week, we saw Seaman defeat Topeka West 44-7 in Glenn O'Neill's debut with the Vikings. Washburn defeated Highland Park 44-0, and Manhattan kind of rolled against Shawnee Heights and Wyatt Hubert 49-13. What jumps out at you about those games?
Well, I picked all those games the way they came out. I went 4-0 on my picks, but the fact that Manhattan won so big on Shawnee Heights surprises me a little bit. But Ian Trapp, their quarterback, had 306 total yards, I think it was, and that's going to take you a long ways. And Shawnee Heights, that's a tough opener for them. Having to play a Manhattan team that's probably got a little. They're probably a little angry. They were 5-4 last year, which isn't bad for most teams. For Manhattan, they're probably looking for a lot more this year, and I think that they were probably really eyeing this opener.
Trapp also had 5 TDs in that game, so he did have an excellent opener. What about Seaman? Seaman looked pretty strong in Glenn O'Neill's debut against Topeka West. Dalton Cowan had 118 passing yards. Kevin Moran's in only 4 attempts had 90 rushing yards. Pretty strong debut for Glenn O'Neill.
Well, most definitely, and the thing about Glenn O'Neill is he's coming from Scott City, where he was 97-14 in 9 seasons.
So he knows what he's doing?
He knows what he's doing, and the thing is, he's not going to put up with that stuff where, hey, we just want to improve. As he said in preseason, the expectation is to win every game, to feel like you can win every game. Is that realistic? Probably not. But you got to go in with that mindset, and I think that's what he brings to the table is, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to win, and just improving on 2-8 last year is not enough. They want to come out and set the tone. I think they did that tonight. The other thing about both them and Washburn Rural tonight is they were able to play a ton of players, kind of look and see at some kids and see what they need to do moving forward. And I think that's very valuable when you can see some kids that maybe have never seen the varsity field before. You get some time.
Sure. You mentioned Washburn Rural. We know Fair and Craft and Highland Park are still in the early stages of a rebuilding process. But we also kind of suspected that Rural's defense would be really good this year. They looked like it early.
Well, Nolan Brewer's one of the best returning linebackers in the city. Cody Ladson had a 33-yard interception return for a touchdown tonight. Offensively, Rural had 275 rushing yards. So they just look pretty strong across the board. The thing for Fair and Craft is Highland Park, as we talked in preseason, was just keep taking those little steps.
Sure.
And sometimes when you've lost, I think it's now 17 in a row, and they were winless last year, the wins aren't necessarily going to come on the scoreboard. They're going to come in the progress you make, and eventually you hope they come on the scoreboard.
Real briefly, we'll touch on the area game of the week, too, even though neither one of us were there to see it. Brent Maycock, our area beat writer, saw a pretty good one in Marysville tonight. Rossville rallies for a 27-20 win. Nice start for the two-time defending 3A state champs. And for that matter, as Brent pointed out in his story, pretty good start for Marysville.
Yes, and that's probably not a bad loss for Marysville at all. Taking a lead against the two-time defending undefeated state champs.
Absolutely. Jacob Bradshaw is the quarterback this year for the Bulldogs, and as Brent mentioned in his story, he did a pretty fair Horrock impression tonight. He had 151 rushing yards and 2 TDs. 185 passing yards in a TD, so that's a good start for Bradshaw.
Well, and I liked what he said in preseason when he talked to our staff that hey, he doesn't feel like the pressure's on him. It's a team sport, and he's just got to do his job, and the other guys got to do their job, and if they do that, they'll be okay. And Horrock's come along once in maybe a coach's career. You don't have to be Tucker Horrock. You just got to be a good, solid high school player. And if you're that, you got several of those kind, you can get the job done.
Absolutely. Week 2, what are you looking for in week 2? Any games jump out at you?
Topeka High has to go to Junction City, and Junction City's always very tough, and it has a lot of great returners. This may be as good a team as Randall Zimmerman's had since the Blue Jays won state a few years ago. It's going to be a very tough battle for Topeka High, particularly going on the road. The other one that sticks out at me is Manhattan's coming off a big win tonight. They come to Washburn Rural, which is also coming off a big win. We'll see who's ready to take that big step after next week.
Yeah, and Steve Bueller's looking for that marquee 6A win.
That's the one he's talked about. He said, hey, we need to beat a good 6A team to really take that next step.
Their defense was strong tonight. They'll be tested next week. Well, that will do it for our first edition of Extra Points. We appreciate you tuning in, and log on to prepzone.com for more coverage of high school sports.